Part three of my little mini series for finding your inner strength and creating techniques for healthy boundaries during these turbulent times. And, we've already talked about what's the difference between a boundary and a defensive wall. Yesterday, I shared with you some of the different types of defensive walls, and there was at least 16 that I've seen clairvoyantly. And today we're going to talk about saying no with love. Okay. All right. Oh, and one other thing. This Sunday, come to my live Q&A, my Boundaries Power workshop. It's 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Okay. And bring your questions and ask me if I see clairvoyantly where you might have a boundary or a defensive garden wall, and have me, like check to see where you're at. And you'll know you need better boundaries if you're suffering with mental and emotional stress, fear, worry, and anxiety, and sponging up other people's negative energies, and feeling drained and exhausted, or being around somebody else who has maybe anger or stress, and then now all of a sudden you have anger and stress. Another way that it might show up is you put in a request, but the person didn't hear you and they're just stepping all over you like a doormat. So those are a few examples of how an unhealthy boundary might show up in your life. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about how to say no with love. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the energetic parts of the boundary, but what about the verbal part? And we have human bodies, so we actually do need to talk to people. Like, we can have, I'll pull out my little snow globe again to demonstrate the boundary. When someone fully 100% owns their energetic healthy boundaries, fully owns their energetic healthy boundaries 100%, super congruent, most of the time they don't even have to speak up and say no or say not now, because people get the message. When you're like clear and congruent with your boundaries, they just get the memo. For example, there have been certain topics that I'm unavailable to talk about with certain family members. So whenever I need to be around them for events or occasions, I'm just energetically unavailable. It's not a defensive wall. It's a boundary. I'm not available to talk about that. And magically, as I became more congruent, they just stopped asking. Okay. So ideally, we're getting you energetically aligned and congruent with healthy boundaries, dropping those defensive walls. And meanwhile, while you're still like owning your boundary power, then being able to say no with love and grace becomes more and more and more important. Okay. So let me get this out again. When you're owning your boundaries and owning your space, and it's, spacious, and someone asks you, let's say the energy's out here, okay, and someone asks you something, but you don't really feel comfortable with it and you don't want that, like you don't want to do it, or you don't want to go that movie, or you don't want to go on that trip, and they ask you and it's out here, it's easier to have grace. But if you don't have any kind of energetic space and boundary, and they ask you and it's like, right in your face, it makes it much harder, right? To have that graceful, no, thank you, or thank you for the offer, and I'm not interested in that. Like there's words we can use that have the no with love and grace, such as those examples that I just gave you, like thank you and no, or thank you and no, that doesn't really fit for me at this time, but I appreciate the offer. Or thank you. I love that idea. And this isn't the right time for me to consider that. Perhaps in the future, I'd be open to it. But right now, it's a no for me. Right. Or another might be, you know, your kids want you to do something or buy them something. And you're like, sweetie, I know you want that toy, or I know you want that new cell phone. And what is going to help mommy to be a yes for that is after you have completed a series of chores and started to save up to allocate, and you can fill in the blank, whatever amount it is, a portion of the cost of the phone. And then I'm a yes, right? So you're not rejecting your kid. You're not saying no, not ever. And you're instilling healthy boundaries, and you're instilling a sense of work, and valuing work and valuing money and giving them something that will build their confidence, right? So there's so many ways that you can say no with love. So join me this Sunday, February 4th at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, and come for brain power. The link to my Zoom is in the description, and bring your questions and let me help you, and bring your friends. Okay, bye for now. Take care.